Venezuela's once powerful oil industry is gradually falling apart.
Inflation is at 2.69 million%.
Food riots and looting. This is now the only daily diet Venezuelans can count on.
Kidnappings are not uncommon in Venezuela.
The most corrupt country in Latin America.
Just empty shelves, no food. No food.
At least 3 million people have fled their country, causing a Syria-level refugee crisis.
My name's Nicole. I lived in Venezuela for 16 years until I moved in 2021.
According to the Venezuela Observatory of Violence, an NGO specializing in murders, the homicide rate in 2019 was 60.3 for every 100,000 inhabitants, the highest in the world.
Crime is a huge deal in the country. I personally got robbed like 3 times. People who don't have any money kind of resort to going into like the richer areas and kind of robbing them or breaking into their houses, stealing cars. My car almost got stolen once. They tore it apart for parts. Nearly all of my friends have gotten like robbed or their house broken into. So we were having dinner and we were getting into the car and this man came up to my dad and started like grabbing his neck and being like, give me your chains, give me your chains. And like anything like valuable, if he had any like gold jewelry or anything, which we didn't have. So he only like took his wallet and his watch and his phone and then left because he was, like I could tell he was more scared than we were. Because then, like even though the legal system sucks, everyone's still kind of scared that they're not going to make it. So that's kind of their way to survive, which is why we understood and just gave him everything. But it was pretty scary.
These men say poverty has led them to a life of crime.
I do this to feed my kids. That's how it started.
For 20 years, like the currency, like they added 7 zeros to like the actual currency. So like $1 is worth like 100 million bolivares.
Bolivares are so worthless, people are literally making origami out of it.
And you don't make anything. Like the minimum wage there is like maybe 100,000 bolivares. Ports for like 10 years-ish, the ports were completely closed. But now you only have things called bodegas, which is where like imported stuff is sold, but it's sold in dollars. So barely no one can go shop there except you're like, supermarkets are basically empty. You can't really buy anything. There's no food. There's no milk. Milk is like very scarce. So are eggs and flour. There's no cartons, so cartons of milk turned into plastic bags of milk. In like 99, the first dictator he was in the military. So throughout all those years, they started like exploiting the military. They started like stealing resources and using the military and military power to like give fear to the people. So when you get like stopped in the street, you don't get stopped by cops. You get stopped by like the actual military and like their tanks and their stuff. And it's all just gone really corrupt. So they ask you for money, they ask you for gas or for oil in your car, or like they actually like take your car.
Clashes in Caracas between protesters and police are looking more like all-out war.
Protests, there was like a really huge year, like 2017. And it got really bad, like the military started killing people who went to protest, so it was like students versus the military.
In Caracas, dozens of gangs like this one carry out kidnappings. Although no official numbers exist, abductions have become big business in recent years.
My middle school teacher, she has a kid and a husband, and they have more money because he was pretty successful and he was part of like this big corporation. And he was having lunch with his partner, his business partner, and some guy just like grabbed him out of the restaurant, like ditched his partner and then kept him, and they kept him for like a week and kept calling my teacher and like her family to give them money, and like if they gave them everything valuable that they had, they would give him back to them. So after they gave them everything, like they literally like emptied their whole house, the husband was found killed in the street of like their neighborhood a couple days later. So
knees and with our heads on the ground like that, and they put the gun like.
What were you thinking at that time?
I thought it was over.
Luisa Salomon and Julio Cesar Balsa explain how they survived an express kidnapping Venezuelan style.
Officials in Venezuela say they've made an important discovery in the case of a kidnapped Major League Baseball player. Catcher Wilson Ramos was abducted Wednesday night by armed men who stormed his home.
Okay, so with COVID, it was total lockdown. You couldn't go to the supermarket, you couldn't get food, you couldn't get anything. So they closed off all of the borders. You could barely cross between states, so every airport was completely shut down. And the night before we left, they canceled all of our flights. Said you can't leave, we're closing off the airport entirely for everyone trying to leave the country. So we had to find other flights. Those got canceled too. But then December 3rd or 4th, we found another flight directly to Dominican Republic, and it was with an airline that was not associated with Venezuela. So they actually were trying to help us leave. But at the airport, they stalled the whole immigration thing. So they tried to delay the actual mounting of the plane, the boarding, and they left us waiting in line, checking our bags for 2 hours, and the plane was supposed to leave without us, but they didn't want to because they knew we had to leave. So that was a whole issue. The military started coming in. They didn't want us to leave, but we still left, and we slept a night in Dominican Republic and came here. So we just moved here. My dad stayed. He still lives there. He just kind of comes here a month at a time. He's had to move and go into sketchy places because everything's so expensive now. So living there on his own, he's kind of going between my family's houses until he can finally move here, but it's pretty scary not knowing what could happen and if he could be stuck there or not. But I've lost almost touch with everyone that I used to know. Sad. But I don't think most people know what's truly going on.